I'm 78 years old. I didn't expect to still be here, and I didn't expect the quiet to be this loud. Most mornings, I sit at the small table by the window with my coffee and listen to the building wake up. Pipes knocking, someone coughing down the hall, a door closing too hard. These sounds let me know I'm not the only one still breathing. Some days, that's enough. Some days, it isn't. There's something I've been carrying for a long time. It didn't arrive all at once. It didn't crash into my life. It settled in slowly, like dust, until one day I looked around and realized it was everywhere. I loved the wrong things. And I loved them for a very long time. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it because it's true. And because at 78, the truth doesn't need polishing anymore. I'm not telling this to be forgiven. Most of the people who might forgive me are gone. I'm telling it because time is thin now, and when time gets thin, lies feel heavier to carry. When you're old, people assume you've made peace with everything. They think age brings clarity and comfort together, like a matched set. What it really brings is clarity without the ability to change much of anything. You finally see the shape of your life, but you don't get to redraw it. I spend a lot of time remembering. Not the big moments people ask about. Not weddings or promotions or the day I bought my first house. I remember Tuesday afternoons, late dinners, half-finished conversations, the feeling of rushing when no one was chasing me. I remember what I chose to care about. In the present, my world is small. A few rooms, a few names written on paper so I don't forget to call them. A calendar that doesn't fill up the way it used to. I move slower. My body reminds me every day that it has limits now. There are stairs I avoid. Roads I don't drive anymore. Words that take longer to come. Death isn't frightening the way I thought it would be. It's familiar. It's been showing up around me for years. Friends first, then siblings, then people who were once at the center of my life, gone quietly, like they were never here at all. What frightens me more is how clearly I see my mistakes now. Not dramatic mistakes, not crimes or disasters, just choices, repeated choices, the kind you make because they seem sensible at the time. When I was younger, I would have told you I was doing what needed to be done. I would have said I was being responsible. I would have said that love required sacrifice, and sacrifice meant putting certain things aside. I wasn't lying, I just didn't know what I was giving up. I grew up believing worth was something you earned. You worked for it, you proved it, you showed it in how busy you were, how tired you were, how much you could carry without complaining. My father believed that, his father believed it. It felt like inheritance, not a choice. So when I was in my 20s, starting out, I did what I thought a decent man was supposed to do. I took the job that paid more instead of the one that felt right. I stayed late. I said yes more than I wanted to. I told myself it was temporary. Temporary is a dangerous word. It stretches easily. It can cover decades. I married young, not foolishly. We loved each other in the way young people do, earnestly, without much imagination. We thought love was enough. We didn't know it also needed attention, and time, and the courage to disappoint other people. She used to wait up for me. Not every night, but often enough that I noticed. I'd come home tired and full of the day, and she'd be sitting on the couch with a book she wasn't really reading. We'd talk, or we'd try to. I'd half listen, thinking about what I hadn't finished. She learned not to ask for much on those nights. I learned to be grateful for her patience without understanding its cost. At the time, I thought I was building something solid. A future, security, a life that would eventually slow down and open up. I didn't realize I was training myself to be absent. In my 30s and 40s, everything sped up. Work became more demanding. Titles changed. Expectations grew. People praised me for my dedication. They said things like, "You're always reliable," and, "We know we can count on you." I liked hearing that. I didn't question why. At home, the children grew without my noticing the exact moments. I was there, but not fully. I attended events but arrived distracted. I listened but not deeply. I told myself there would be time later, when things settled. Things never settled. They just shifted shape. I missed dinners for meetings that didn't matter 5 years later. I postponed vacations. I brought work home in my head even when I left it at the office. I thought being present meant being physically nearby. I didn't understand how quiet absence works. The damage didn't announce itself. It didn't come with arguments or slammed doors. It showed up as distance. As fewer questions. As my wife no longer waiting up with a book. She didn't stop loving me all at once. She stopped needing me in small ways. I didn't notice until those ways were gone. When you're in the middle of life, you don't feel the weight of years. You feel the pressure of days. You respond to what's loud and urgent. You neglect what's patient. I loved achievement. I loved being needed. I loved the feeling of usefulness more than I loved stillness. I loved being respected more than being known. I didn't call it that then. I just thought I was doing my job. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of falling behind. Afraid of being ordinary. Afraid that if I slowed down, I would see something I didn't want to see. By the time I reached my 50s, the shape of my life was mostly set. The house was quieter. The conversations shorter. My wife and I spoke more about logistics than feelings. It wasn't hostile. It was polite. That almost made it worse. I remember sitting across from her one night, eating dinner we'd both reheated at different times, and realizing I didn't know what she was thinking anymore. I didn't ask. I was tired. I told myself it could wait. It always could wait. Until it couldn't. Looking back, there were moments that could have changed things. Small moments. A decision to leave work early. A conversation that needed more than 10 minutes. A choice to disappoint someone else instead of the people at home. I didn't take those moments seriously enough. I thought life was long. I thought love was durable on its own. I was wrong. Now, at 78, I understand what I was really loving back then. I loved the promise of later. I loved the idea that everything important could be postponed. I loved the illusion that I could rearrange my life when it suited me. Time doesn't work that way. It never did. I just didn't notice until it was almost gone. I sit here now, surrounded by objects that once mattered to me. Awards, photographs, things I kept because I thought they told a story. They don't speak much anymore. What speaks are the empty spaces. The people who aren't sitting across from me. The conversations that ended without saying what needed to be said. I'm not angry with my younger self. He did what he knew how to do. But I wish he had been braver in a quieter way. In my 60s, the consequences started to show themselves more clearly. Not as punishment, just as facts. My wife grew ill slowly. Nothing dramatic at first. Small complaints, fatigue, appointments I didn't always attend with her because something else seemed more pressing. She never argued about it. That should have worried me more than it did. When the illness became serious, I tried to step in fully. I reduced my hours. I learned the medications. I sat beside her bed. From the outside, it probably looked like devotion. From the inside, it felt like catching up on a language I should have been speaking all along. There were things she wanted to say by then. I could tell. But years of careful distance don't disappear just because one person finally slows down. We talked about the past in safe ways. We avoided the sharp edges. We were kind. We were also late. She died on a quiet morning. No speeches. No final revelations. Just a hand in mine and a look that held more history than words ever could. After the funeral, people told me I'd been a good husband. I nodded. I didn't correct them. It wasn't the time. It still might not be. Grief isn't loud the way people imagine. It's repetitive. It's waking up and reaching for someone who isn't there. It's realizing there's no one left who remembers certain versions of you. I retired not long after. Not because I wanted to. Because there was nothing left pulling me forward. Work had been a structure. Without it, the days spread out. I saw how little I had built outside of obligation. The children called, less often than I expected, more often than I deserved. They had their own lives. I could hear it in their voices. I had once modeled that distance for them. They learned well. Alone gives you time. Too much time, sometimes. Time to replay choices without the excuse of being busy. Time to notice how often you had said, later, instead of, now. I realized then that loving the wrong things doesn't feel wrong while you're doing it. It feels responsible, sensible, praised. No one stops you. They encourage you. The cost only becomes clear when the things you postponed no longer exist. There are friendships I let fade because they required effort I didn't want to give after long days. There were moments of tenderness I brushed past because they felt inefficient. I didn't think of it as neglect. I thought of it as focus. Focus can be a kind of blindness. I don't tell this story because I believe regret should define a life. Mine had good in it. Laughter, pride, moments of real connection, but those moments were fewer than they needed to be, and they were treated as rewards instead of essentials. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, I don't know what choices you're facing. I won't tell you what to do. I can only tell you what surprised me. What surprised me was how quietly life closes its doors. One by one, without drama. One day, You don't get asked anymore. One day, you're no longer the first call. One day, you realize you've been replaced not by someone better, but by time itself. The things I loved gave me status, comfort, distraction. They did not sit with me when the house emptied. They do not remember me. People do that, or they would have, if I had been there enough. I have less time now. I know that. I'm careful with it in ways I never was before. But careful doesn't mean powerful. I can't go back. I can only speak forward. After my wife was gone and work no longer filled the hours, I started to understand something I hadn't had the space to feel before. When the noise fades, you finally hear what's been speaking quietly underneath it all along. Loneliness isn't just being alone. I had been alone before, even in crowded rooms, even at my own dinner table. Loneliness is realizing there are fewer people who truly know you, and fewer still who remember you the way you once were. I tried to reconnect, not in dramatic ways, small gestures, calls that felt slightly overdue, invitations that came with an unspoken apology attached to them. Some were received kindly, some weren't returned at all. I don't blame anyone. Distance, once learned, becomes familiar. I taught it well. There were evenings I would sit with old photo albums. Not for nostalgia, exactly. More for proof. Proof that those years existed the way I remembered them. In many of the pictures, I'm smiling. In many, I'm standing just slightly apart, already turned towards something else. I don't remember what that something else was. People talk about legacy as if it's a thing you build intentionally. In truth, it's mostly what's left after you stop explaining yourself. It's how people felt around you. It's whether they miss your presence or just acknowledge your absence. That realization came slowly, and then all at once. The turning point, if I can call it that, wasn't a single moment. It was an accumulation, but there was one day that stands out. I was 72. I had been in the hospital for a minor procedure. Nothing serious, a few days of observation. When I was discharged, I walked out carrying a small bag with my clothes and a folder of instructions. No one was waiting for me. I stood there longer than I needed to, watching families gather around their people, hearing names called out with relief. I told myself it didn't matter. I could manage. I always had. On the ride home, something settled in me. Not sadness, clarity. I saw my life from a distance, the way you see a town you're leaving behind. I understood that I had been very good at surviving and not very good at staying. The things I loved had trained me to move forward constantly, to value momentum over depth, to treat rest as weakness and presence as optional. I had loved productivity, approval, predictability. I had loved the feeling of being necessary in systems that function perfectly well without me now. What I hadn't loved enough were the fragile things. The slow things. The moments that don't announce their importance until they're gone. You can't fix that understanding once it arrives. You can only carry it. There are things I cannot repair. Words that can no longer be spoken to the people who needed them. Apologies that would land too late to matter. Relationships that reached their natural end without the closure I imagined I would someday offer. Time is not cruel, it's honest. In my 70s, I began living differently, but not dramatically. I noticed more. I listened longer. I let silences exist without rushing to fill them. I stopped explaining myself as much. There was no audience left that required it. Some mornings, I walk slowly through the neighborhood. I see younger people hurrying past, eyes already elsewhere. I recognize myself in them, though they would never see it. I don't stop them. I don't warn them. Life doesn't receive warnings well. It teaches in its own time. If I speak to you now, it's not to instruct you. It's to offer something I didn't know I needed when I was younger, an honest account. You will love what rewards you. That's natural, but pay attention to what stays with you when the rewards stop. Pay attention to who waits for you, and how long they wait. Notice how often you tell yourself something can wait. Ask yourself what it's costing in real time, not imagined future time. I thought I would be remembered for what I provided, for how reliable I was, for how much I carried. What I'm remembered for, when I'm remembered at all, is quieter than that. I don't have many years left. I feel that in my bones, in the way seasons pass faster now. I don't dread it, I just don't want to leave anything unsaid that might still be useful. I love the wrong things because they asked the least of my heart and the most of my endurance. They felt safer. They were measurable. Love that matters is harder to measure. It asks you to stay when leaving would be easier. To be present when distraction feels earned. I know that, now. I know it deeply. I sit at my table most evenings as the light fades. I don't rush to turn the lamp on. I let the room grow dim. It reminds me that endings don't always need to be resisted. Some just need to be noticed. If this meant something to you, I'm glad. If it didn't, that's all right too. We each arrive at these truths in our own time, or not at all. As for me, I'll be here tomorrow morning, listening to the building wake up, holding what time I have left more gently than I once did. Closing square bracket.